You're joking, aren't you? It's the Teesside Chef. Today I'm reversing the greatest culinary scandal of modern times by bringing back the biscuit that they abandoned, the original oat biscuit and king of the dunkers, the famous, and dare I say seminal, Abbey Crunch. This forgotten recipe that I have spilt blood, sweat and tears to reincarnate begins with 120 grams of softened butter and 120 grams of caster sugar that must then be creamed together. You do have to use caster sugar. Ordinary sugar with its larger grains will give a spurious, slightly chewy texture that doesn't fit in with my childhood memories of eating Abbey Crunch with a cup of tea while writing letters to Jim'll Fix-It. Buttery and crisp, yet yielding and tender oatiness with a light caramel flavour kissed by a whisper of golden syrup, 1 tablespoon's worth here, although it's generally the deepness of the baking that provides the depth of the syrupy flavour, but we'll get to that. So once that's all mixed together in a separate bowl, we want to add 135 grams exactly of plain all-purpose flour and 120 grams of chopped rolled oats. You can see the texture here. If you can't buy them like this, blitz rolled oats in a food processor or similar to get this finely chopped jumbo porridge oat consistency. An important word on the leavener now, because we need the biscuits to rise a little, but not too much. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder will do the trick. Every recipe for Abbey Crunch I've seen includes baking soda, but this will raise the pH of the dough, causing too much browning, and this gives a caramel flavour that is too strong. I use baking soda in my hobnobs recipe for this reason, but Abbey Crunch is more subtle, so we don't want to use baking soda here, and after a pinch of salt is added, the dry ingredients can be stirred to combine, and then we can go ahead and add them to our creamed butter and sugar mix, where I'll bring the whole thing together with a spoon first, before going in with my hands to complete the mixing process. And along the way, I'll add a tablespoon of milk to assist me with this endeavour. And even though I get a lovely hit of nostalgia when I eat my homemade Abbey Crunch, I still want the name of the buffoon at McVitie's who took the decision to discard this wonderful oat cookie, ultimately in favour of the hobnob. Now, don't get me wrong, the hobnob is a top-tier biscuit, but for me, it just doesn't have the charm of Abbey Crunch. And if I ever find that idiotic executive who has played God with my biscuit preferences, they'll be getting a Chinese burn and a nipple cripple from me at the very least. Unless it's a woman, of course, in which case I'll leave out the nipple cripple, because I simply will not allow my anger to supersede my phylogeny. I like to think I'm better than that. My recipe has been perfectly calibrated to weigh no less than 480 grams, because a standard-sized baking tray like this one, which I'll flip for a more even bake, can house exactly 2 batches of 12, so long as you carefully weigh out a 20-gram piece for each cookie, which is the perfect size. You need to roll each 20-gram piece into a tight little ball, so have some water on standby just in case your hands get too sticky doing this. You also need to be careful that the wistfulness that eating Abbey Crunch will elicit deep within you will not then compel you to expand upon those emotions by posting boring and often faintly fascistic memes on Facebook about how everything was better before they let all the immigrants in, or everything was better when there was no health and safety regulation. Because it wasn't really, was it? It's just that biscuits were better, and hey, these cookie dough balls will spread while baking, so need to be strategically spaced on your baking tray, and you need to squash them down until they're about a centimetre thick. And I already have my oven preheating set to 130 degrees Celsius with the fan on. That's about 266 Fahrenheit, and if you don't have a fan setting, crank your oven to 150 degrees Celsius, 300 Fahrenheit. And even though I've warned you about the potential dangers of nostalgic sentiment, I just couldn't help yearning for simpler times myself while developing this recipe, and lamenting the things that we've lost over the years. Why do things have to change, and why am I so old now? But never mind all that sentimental bollocks, because we have to bake these Abbey Crunch for 25 minutes now, and you can see in the oven how they rise and spread much like fascist ideology has in the West in recent times. And after 25 minutes, turn the oven off and allow the biscuits to crisp up in the turned-off oven for a further 15 minutes, after which they should have a light golden colour, be slightly knobbly on top, and you must resist the temptation to try them, because we need to get them on a grid to cool fully before we can allow ourselves the indulgence of basking in the nostalgic joy of one of the greatest biscuits ever created by humanity. Let's get a grip of one now they're fully cooled, and you should get a lovely clean snap with a light crunch all the way through. And if eating Abbey Crunch doesn't conjure up childhood memories in you, then unfortunately, I'm afraid you're dead inside. I'll see yous next time, eh?